Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Of course, in today's video, we are going to be reacting to the Week 17 NFL games. Tomorrow, you guys are going to be getting NFL weekly predictions. Yes, I know it's the holidays, but we're still pumping videos out for you guys. So, obviously, we are going to be reacting to the NFL games. We're literally just going to go down each game, talk about it, a few points on each game, and move on to the next game. We're not going to spend a whole ton of time on every single game. I want to keep this short and simple to the point. And yeah, that is basically what we are going to be doing in today's video. But first, if you guys are new to the channel, you already know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe, turn that bell on, as we do our best to post on this channel every single day. Loaded bowl game slate today between Alabama and Michigan starting at 11 a.m. LSU Baylor at 2:30. South Carolina Illinois at 2 o'clock as well. And then, of course, we have Louisville Washington, with us closing out tonight between Penn State and Boise State in the college football playoff quarterfinal at the Fiesta Bowl. So, loaded bowl game slate today and tonight as well. Tomorrow we will have the New Year's Day bowl games as well, with the quarterfinals of the college football playoff, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Peach Bowl. And yeah, that's the college football slate for the next 2 days. So, lots of exciting things going on in the world of football right now. Obviously, we got these Week 17 NFL games to react to, so let's go ahead and do that right now and hop into week number 17. All right, so kicking us off, of course, on Christmas Day was the Chiefs going into Pittsburgh, and everybody could have had Pittsburgh on upset alert for this one, but of course Mahomes and the boys getting it done. Travis Kelce was not utilized a ton in this game, obviously, but Mahomes was still able to distribute the ball to some of his playmakers like DeAndre Hopkins, Juju Smith-Schuster, Noah Grant as well. There were a lot of people other than Travis Kelce who Patrick Mahomes was able to get the ball to due to that defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers being kind of injured a little bit. They were also just kind of on their heels the entire game. Obviously, when you face Patrick Mahomes, that's kind of what's going to happen. You're going to get pushed down the field. The Chiefs are going to drive the football, and that is ultimately what they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers and got the job done against Pittsburgh, where Russell Wilson did in fact struggle in this game as well. I believe they had a couple interceptions. Chiefs defense looking really, really solid like it always has been, and the Chiefs have gotten the win on the road in Pittsburgh on Christmas Day. All right, moving on to the next Christmas Day game, of course, was the Ravens going into the Texans. Texans only scoring 2 points on a sack by Derrick Henry. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson looked really, really well. He played outstanding. Derrick Henry ran pretty much all over, other than, of course, the sack or the 2-point safety. But again, the Texans, they did not look really good at all. C.J. Stroud threw for like 3 interceptions, I want to say he had throughout the game. The offense was not looking good. Joe Mixon did not look good as well. And the Ravens ultimately did wind up getting the win on Christmas Day on the road. I don't know what else to say. I mean, everything was basically clicking for the Ravens in this matchup, and they ultimately got the job done on Christmas Day on the road. Next game up here was, of course, the Thursday night football game between the Seahawks and the Bears. A boring game between both of these two squads. 6-3, the final score. Seahawks, Geno Smith didn't look good, but neither did Caleb Williams. From what I took away from this game is the Bears' offensive line needs some work. The offensive line for the Bears is absolutely pitiful. Caleb Williams got sacked a lot during this game. The Seahawks, on the other hand, they just couldn't move the ball down the field for whatever reason. Geno tried to force it to DK Metcalf too many times. He was locked up pretty much the entire game. JSN obviously couldn't get open as well. Ultimately, the Seahawks did win this game, but again, it was an all-field goal type of game, a very defensive type game, and the Seahawks still in contention for a playoff spot. All right, speaking of the playoffs, moving on to Saturday, of course, we have 3 games on Saturday. The first one being the Chargers and the Patriots, in which the Chargers have clinched a playoff spot. Jim Harbaugh, in his first year as the Chargers head coach, have clinched a playoff spot. One, obviously, Drake May, he's got some, he can make some plays for the Patriots. I saw a little bit of that there on Saturday during this game as well. The Chargers, on the other hand, Justin Herbert was clicking. Ladd McConkey played really well as well. J.K. Dobbins, I believe, played really well too. But what stood out for me for this Chargers team was the defense. The defense allowing the Patriots to only score 7 points on the road as well, in a pretty kind of not a great environment in New England. It's pretty good. Chargers, they get the win. They're in the postseason. Jim Harbaugh, one of the candidates for Coach of the Year, if you are asking me. Up next, you had the overtime thriller of a game on Saturday between the Broncos and the Bengals. I watched a lot of this game, and Bo Nix, Joe Burrow, both of them balled out really well. They played well. Obviously, Joe Burrow having to do it himself with Cade York, I believe, missing the game-winning field goal in overtime on the first drive. The defense stood strong for, of course, the Bengals, and then that is ultimately where Joe Burrow just took over the game and showed why he is an MVP candidate, if you are asking me. Bengals, obviously, still in playoff contention. They have to have two things to happen, though, for them to get in the playoffs. They need the Broncos to lose to the Chiefs, and they also need, of course, the Miami Dolphins to lose to the Jets as well, and they need to win to get in as well. Bengals taking on the Steelers next week. We'll have predictions for that one too. But ultimately, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase had a few drops. T. Higgins was on point during this game. T. Higgins, I believe, a couple of touchdown receptions, and he at least over 100 yards. He balled out for this Bengals team and showed why he deserves to be paid. On the Broncos side of things, Pat Surtain on the defensive side, the ball played really well, I thought, in some spots of the game. The Broncos, Cortland Sutton was playing really well. Bo Nix was lighting it up too. Bo Nix could throw a deep ball, and the Bengals do ultimately still have a chance in making the NFL playoffs. They just have to have a couple of things go their way. Next, you got the Cardinals going into the Rams. This was a boring game from the start. I kind of turned this one off after about the first quarter or so. It was a very, very boring game. The Rams do ultimately get the job done. Kyler Murray just couldn't seem to move the ball down the field against a really solid Rams defense. The Rams defense is one of those defense where I don't want to see them in the playoffs, especially in the NFC, where anything can happen for the most part. In the AFC, you kind of know the Chiefs are going to go all the way. But in the NFC, I don't want to see the Rams in this playoffs. Their offense looked really well. Their defense was clicking on Saturday night as well. They could play some football. Sean McVay's got that group rattled, and I would not be shocked if the Los Angeles Rams started to make a run here in the NFL playoffs. But again, the Rams do ultimately get the win here thanks to the defense holding Kyler Murray and kind of containing him to limit him, getting his sacks, all of that good stuff, as the Rams do in fact get the win here on Saturday night. Up next, you got the Eagles destroying the Cowboys. There's really nothing to talk about for this game. The Eagles needed to win this one for the division, and they ultimately did, in fact, get the NFC East division. The Cowboys, they just didn't look all that great. We had one, I believe the one bright spot of the day was, of course, that touchdown pass to Jalen Tolbert from Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush throwing some interceptions on the day did not help us. Saquon Barkley obviously breaking the rushing yards record for the Eagles as well is definitely in contention too. And the Eagles clinch the division, clinch a playoff spot. Very happy for them, and ultimately they got the job done at home against a very, very pitiful Cowboys team. Up next is the Panthers going into the Bucs. We'll start on the Panthers side of things because I want to talk about Bryce Young for a second. The dude can drop some dimes. We saw this on Sunday where he dropped a dime to Adam Thielen. Xavier Legette should have had a catch. Obviously, did not have a catch there as well. But ultimately, the Panthers do end up falling to the better team here. On the Bucs side of things, the Baker Mayfield went off on a really crappy defense, a really banged-up injury defense, missing J.C. Horn, missing Derek Brown. Obviously, when your two best players are out on defense, not a lot's going to help. But the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all of those guys were cooking, and they ultimately were just the better team, and they are still in contention for the NFC South as well. But the Bucs do get the job done at home against the Panthers in week number 17. Next game up, of course, was the Jets going into the Bills. I didn't have very much faith in the Jets in this one. The Bills, on the other hand, They were cooking. Amari Cooper was on point for the most part. I had faith in him. He kind of helped that fantasy, for me at least, get to a fantasy championship game. Amari Cooper played really well. Josh Allen played really well. Aaron Rodgers struggling on the day, throwing a couple of interceptions as well. And ultimately, the Bills were just the better team. And Josh Allen showed why that he is an MVP candidate, if you're asking me, as the Bills do, in fact, get the job done against the Jets in Week 17 to get the number 2 seed. Moving on to the next game, and man, oh man, oh man, you cannot make this stuff up. The Giants selling the number 1 overall pick to the Indianapolis Colts. Drew Lock had himself a heck of a day, though. 5 touchdown passes, over 300 yards of offense for the Giants. Absolutely wild. And the Giants do, in fact, lose that number 1 overall pick. A lot of Giants fans are absolutely pissed about that. The Indianapolis Colts, on the other hand, they are out of playoff contention now, and there's going to be some changes made in the offseason for that organization. I'm sure of it. However, the Giants do get the win, and Drew Lock played really well. Anthony Richardson, Joe Flacco did not play really well as well. And the Giants, they lose the number 1 overall draft pick, which has fans absolutely furious. Moving on, we'll react to 2 games here at the same time. Raiders and the Saints, just a blowout from the Saints. Obviously, the Saints have nothing to play for. Raiders, they don't have anything to play for as well. But the Raiders do, in fact, get the win there. Titans and Jaguars, Jags do get the win and a close matchup as well. I believe Mac Jones played quarterback. They got the win there. Tank Bigsby, I believe, had a little bit of action in that game. Titans defense needs some work, obviously. Titans also need to figure out who their number 1 quarterback is going forward. Is it going to be Will Levis or is it going to be Mason Rudolph? They need to figure that out before they get the number 2 overall pick and possibly draft a quarterback as well. But back to the Saints game. Saints defense didn't look good. Obviously, the Saints offense was not clicking. However, I will say that Spencer Rattler showed signs that he can be QB1 of the future. Give him a healthy team. Banged up on defense right now for the Saints. Chris Olave's out, obviously. Draft a couple of really good skill players for Spencer Rattler, and I could definitely see him being that QB1 of the future for the New Orleans Saints. As the Saints and the Jags win, Saints fall. And in week number 17. Moving on, you got the Dolphins blowing out the Browns 20-3. Every time I looked at this game was close. I was trying to keep up with it for the Bengals' sake of things, seeing if the Bengals were going to make the playoffs. Ultimately, the Dolphins do, in fact, getting the win behind Skylar Thompson. DTR is just trash, man. I don't really know why you're starting him over Jameis Winston. I think he gives you the best shot to win, unless you're just trying to lose at this point. But ultimately, the Dolphins, 1 more win, and they are in the NFL playoffs, I believe, between that. So if the Broncos lose and the Dolphins win, the Dolphins get in. If the Broncos lose, Dolphins lose, and Bengals win, the Bengals get in. That's the scenario for the AFC next week. Dolphins have to win next week, though, to lock up a playoff spot if the Broncos, in fact, lose to the Chiefs. But ultimately, Dolphins get the job done. Tyreek Hill looked okay. I thought Jalen Waddle looked okay in this matchup. Nothing really stood out to me. Again, it's against a sorry Browns team, but ultimately, the Dolphins did, in fact, get the win there on the road in Cleveland. All right, next and the final game of the afternoon slate on Sunday was, of course, the Packers going into Minnesota in a phenomenal game. Was not able to watch the second half of this game. The first half I was able to watch. However, what I took away is that Sam Darnold needs his receivers to get open. That is for sure. Justin Jefferson didn't really get open in that first half. Neither did Jordan Addison. I'm sure that they came alive a little bit there in the second half. But ultimately, the Vikings did, in fact, get the job done. And it is rumored now that Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the future in Minnesota as well. He's playing lights out right now. Sunday Night Football. Minnesota, Detroit, gonna be a fun one for the NFC number 1 seed, and we'll see who gets the win next week, though, as the Vikings do beat an NFC North division rival in the Green Bay Packers at home behind Sam the Man Darnold. All right, then of course we have the overtime thriller of a Sunday Night Football action to close us all out on Sunday. Of course, the Falcons going into the Commanders. This game was fun. This was a really fun one. Don't know why the Falcons don't use timeouts, though, for whatever reason, there towards the end of the game, obviously. However, JAYDEN Daniels and Terry McLaurin get the, of course, the playoff spot. They are in the playoffs as the number 7 seed. That is going to be very interesting to watch. JAYDEN Daniels, I believe, getting one of the first wins for him against a 500 team, I believe, is what that stat was on Sunday night. However, overtime game, was not able to watch a ton of this game, but it looked like a fun one. The Commanders do, in fact, get the job done at home against the Falcons in overtime to clinch a playoff berth. And the final game, of course, on Monday Night Football. Last night, we had the Lions beating the 49ers 40-34. A very close game on Monday Night Football. Obviously, the 49ers don't have anything to play for. Lions do, in fact, get the job done. Dan Campbell is ballsy, going for 2 on 4th downs. All of that stuff and more, that's what you want. You want to play to win. Ultimately, the Lions did play to win. They were out for revenge, man, against last year in the NFC Championship game. Jared Goff looked pretty good. The defense, especially for the Lions, looked pretty good, as they do hold off the 49ers on Monday Night Football and get the job done. Anyway, of course, that is going to do it for this week's NFL Reactions, week number 17. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, turn that bell on, as we do our best to post on this channel every single day. I'm going to hop off because it's edited so you guys can watch it on time. Have a great New Year's if I don't see you in tomorrow's NFL predictions video. Happy New Year's to everybody. Last video of 2024 here on the channel, which is absolutely wild. 2025 is going to be a good year, though. That is for sure. And, yeah, that's pretty much going to do it. Loaded bowl game slate today. Alabama, Michigan, LSU, Baylor, Louisville, Washington, South Carolina, Illinois. And then, of course, to end us all off, we got the college football playoff quarterfinal between Penn State and, of course, Boise State as well.